Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice lunch chatting with each other. Sounded like there was a lot of conversations going on. So that makes me really happy. All right, so as we now enter into our afternoon session, I want us to start thinking about the challenges of reaching the most marginalized girls. One approach that's been extremely popular and has been at the center of many global education discussions is that of life skills education. At an aspirational level, life skills are believed to help girls achieve a wide range of empowering cognitive, health, social, economic, and political outcomes. But does this happen in reality? Here at Brookings, within our larger work on skills for a changing world, we have been working with research partners and with the Girls Charged Life Skills Working Group to think through life skills development for girls. What are life skills? How do they develop? How can they be taught effectively? And how do they actually transform girls' lives? While the field has made great strides in promoting life skills programming for adolescent girls over the last decade, we risk leaving girls hanging when they, empowered by their new skills, are met with sometimes violent backlash by family, community members, and others when they attempt to apply these skills outside of the safe spaces created by NGOs and other programs. The burden of change often falls on the shoulders of young adolescent girls, who have learned life skills, and now I think we should look at how the onus is now on us to figure out how to simultaneously create more receptive and enabling environments. But the problem is that there is a lack of clarity and alignment in the field. Through our research and consultations, what became increasingly clear was that there are as many definitions of life skills as there are girls' education actors in the space. There's a lack of attention to the processes of empowerment. Programs are not often reaching the most marginalized and vulnerable girls. And cross-country and in-country variations in the actual skills targeted suggest that programming might be, in many cases, driven more by program and donor priorities than by what the girls need and desire themselves. So in short, programs risk missing the goal of social change for girls. But rather than get us into a terminology debate, here at Brookings, we focused on identifying key components and core principles for practitioners to consider when designing and implementing a transformative life skills program. So this afternoon, we're going to focus our attention on life skills approaches to empowerment, particularly thinking beyond approaches that focus on the girls themselves, and how we can engage community in the broader social and political context in their empowerment. So in the remainder of this half hour, I will introduce our framework for transformative life skills education that we hope will help girls' education practitioners and policymakers better design and implement and make policy decisions that support life skills programming. And the strategic goal here is also to provide all of us here today here in the audience in Salzilka and also watching online with a common language and concepts for thinking about our final session this afternoon. So I'll start here with a short animation that introduces our work.
This is Aaliyah, a 14-year-old girl who loves going to school. Around the world, girls like Aaliyah encounter challenges that life skills can help them navigate. But what are life skills? They are networks of knowledge, skills, and attitudes developed over time. Together, KSA networks form competencies that strengthen a girl's ability to function, thrive, and adapt to daily realities, as well as to change the course of her life outcomes at pivotal moments in her life. Here, Aaliyah faces a new life challenge. Her parents want her to get married soon. In a situation like this, Aaliyah can draw upon her knowledge, such as knowing the benefits of completing her education, and skills such as her capacity to set goals, assess potential risk, and her attitudes on gender equality and human rights. Once activated, these KSAs enable her to formulate a set of actions that may not have been possible before. But moving from skills to empowered action isn't so straightforward. The process of translation is complicated by and influenced by mediating factors. These include agency and opportunity structures. Here, Aaliyah's boyfriend now wants to initiate sexual intercourse. But does her boyfriend recognize that she is an agent of her own life? That she can exert control over her life as she chooses? Her ability to see and make choices will influence whether she can translate her KSAs into action, like convincing her partner to delay intercourse, or to use contraceptives, or to have him leave the room. In addition to her agency, are there opportunity structures in her environment, such as policy, social norms, and cultural contexts that will enable or inhibit her opportunities and choices? In Aaliyah's case, it matters whether or not she's had the opportunity to read a pamphlet on contraception, whether there is legislation mandating jail time for perpetrators of rape, and whether she's had the opportunity to have participated in a life skills program that taught her how to communicate assertively. As Aaliyah goes through her life, her KSA networks can become weaker or stronger. But her ability to translate them into empowered action depends on more than just the life skills she develops. This translation is mediated by the opportunity structures present or absent, and whether her agency is recognized by others. Viewing life skills development and translation as this dynamic and social process will help us help girls like Aaliyah achieve improved life outcomes, as well as wider transformative social change that will influence the life and opportunities of others around her and of those who will come after her.
So the first thing we suggest is that life skills is not necessarily a specific set of skills for life, but rather a composition of knowledge, skills, and attitudes, or what one knows, what one has, and what one believes and values. And together, these networks of what I'll hear from here on out called KSAs form a dynamic set of competencies, or what we can do, or what one can do. So in developmental psychology, maybe think back to, if any of you have taken classes in developmental psychology, think back to sort of an image of a brain and all the complicated networks of neurons in it, and how over the course of a girl or a boy's lifetime, their brains are developing neurons and neural networks. Neural networks get connected with old ones, and over time you can have a sophisticated network of neural networks. So similarly, imagine KSAs connecting together to form competencies. As new KSAs are learned, they are connected to existing KSAs and network together into different competencies themselves. Different networks of KSAs can be activated, deactivated, reassembled, depending on the competencies required over the girl's lifetime and different life situations. So for example, if we think about building girls' competencies so that she can negotiate delaying marriage, we might focus specifically on knowledge about negative consequences of early marriage, gender and power, anti-child marriage laws, her rights, and the importance of returns to education, particularly secondary education. We'll also need to think about skills like risk assessment, listening, understanding another person's point of view, self-control, positive self-concept, and goal orientation. And then finally, we'll also need to consider pro-equality attitudes like a healthy intolerance of gender injustice and beliefs like girls' rights are human rights. But as we suggested in the animation earlier, going from building competencies to girls taking action that allows them to pursue choices previously denied to them, or what we call empowered action, isn't so straightforward. How do we actually go from competencies to empowered action? Closely tied to this question, how do we ensure life skills development is linked with improved life outcomes and social change? If we think that the rationale for a focus on girls' life skills education is rooted to the goal to combat the effects of gender discrimination and gender inequality, then life skills programming must be closely tied to a theory of wider systemic change. So this is where we introduce the concept of translation, what we think is perhaps more important than the concept of skills being transferable from context to context. Translation is the process of activating KSA networks through action. It actually precedes the process of transferability. Without attending to this translation, or if you think about just applying KSAs in action and in real-world contexts, we actually risk her knowledge, skills, and attitudes remaining stuck in the safe spaces in which they're learned. So second is the process of mediation, in which opportunity structures and the girl's own level of agency influences the degree to which she can translate competencies into action, and also the degree to which her actions are empowering. So let's take maybe a closer look at these two particular mediating factors. So first, we have to think about the opportunity structures that enable or limit the degree to which the girl can translate competencies into choices and into action. Opportunity structures can include the social and political context, as well as the historical experiences and opportunities the girls may or may not have encountered or have had access to across her life course. So if you think back to the animation and the importance for Aaliyah to have had available to her information on birth control, the availability of health and family planning services, and resources like contraceptives in order to make a decision at that particular moment in time with her boyfriend. Opportunity structures can also include the enabling or limiting structures within the labor market, within the marriage market, and even the quality of her social relationships, as well as behaviors and attitudes towards girls held by teachers or community leaders. So second, we have to think about agency, or the girl's ability to see and to make choices. The thing is that her individual agency is achieved in multiple ways. One is sort of an internal development determined by the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that she possesses and develops over time. These can become stronger. They can make her a stronger agent of her own life by really being strengthened, diversified, and becoming more complex over time. But then another way is relational, determined by whether others recognize her agency. Again, think back to the animation with Aaliyah and her boyfriend. If her boyfriend does not recognize that she is an agent of her own life, possessing a plethora of KSAs will have little effect on her ability to actually choose her destiny and choose her actions. So together, these mediating factors of agency and opportunity structures have a significant role in the process of translation. And we don't pretend that this isn't abstract stuff. And we really think that if we don't attend to these factors, then we really risk developing girls' life skills to navigate life skills programs and not necessarily their real-world context. Not paying attention to the girl's ability to translate competencies into empowered action and not viewing mediating factors like opportunity structures and agency as equally important as developing knowledge, skills, and attitudes really risks life skills programming, leaving girls behind, leaving them hanging, and keeping the onus of change on their shoulders. So this means that our programming misses a critical step in achieving the goal of transforming and empowering girls' lives. So to sum up our framework, we identify four core principles for transformative life skills programming for girls. The first one is that programs really need to consider 5 critical touch points or phases in life skills development and social change. 1, building competencies. 2, the process of translation and mediation. 3, the actual empowered action that we're hoping that she's able to take on and choose and exhibit. 4th, the actual improved life outcome or set of life outcomes. And the 5th, the wider systemic social change. So this means that programs really need to think beyond the short-term intervention phase and really think long-term across the girl's lifetime. The second core principle is that we really need to keep in mind that life skills are competencies constituted by dynamic KSA networks, so knowledge, skills, and attitudes. This means that we need to really think broader in terms of what the quote-unquote life skills are and really be more specific about the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that constitute these actual competencies. The third core principle is that we need to be more intentional about development and change in our programming. Life skills development is a continuous, nonlinear process of cognitive, emotional, psychological, social, as well as behavioral change that is not confined to adolescence, but rather dependent on experiences, learning, and opportunity starting from early childhood, through adolescence, and into young adulthood. And adulthood, actually. I'm still learning. But this development at the individual level interacts with change that's happening in her community and in the broader environment as well. So we really need to think more broadly about development and change, intentionally about it in our programming, and then also how the individual girl's development is interacting with the change that's happening in her environments. And then the final principle is that life skills programs must support girls to, quote unquote, read her context, read gender, read power. These are key opportunity structures that really influence her capacity to translate KSAs into empowered action. So the abstract mission of providing girls with skills they need to be successful in life is really easy to get behind, but challenging to define and even, let alone, measure actual progress. And what I've presented right now isn't straightforward, and it's nonlinear progression suggests a very difficult practical application. But then again, we all know that triggering social change was not meant to be and is not easy. So I hope that this framework at least provides some concepts and language that will allow us to ensure that life skills programming helps push the needle forward for girls like Aaliyah around the world, rather than leaving the onus of change on themselves. So, all right, so we are definitely gonna go a little bit early. So since our panelists are all here, we'll transition to our final session. And I'll start by saying, if there is one key takeaway point from this presentation as we enter into our final session for the day, it's that in order to develop empowering and transformative life skills among the most marginalized girls around the world, we have to look beyond the girl herself and to truly connect program outcomes to life outcomes. Our panelists in our next session have enormous insights to share on how they and their organizations have thought beyond the girl and across the girl's lifetime to tackle the life skills development of the individual girl for wider social and systemic change. So we'll start our final session with a presentation by our final Echidna Global Scholar, Armin Modi. Armin is the founder of Ashtanokai. And just to give you a little context on her story, back in the 1990s, she read this amazing book that really disturbed her in terms of bringing to light the very low literacy rate for women in the 1990s. And so Armin actually left a 25-year teaching career to establish Ashtanokai, a nonprofit that works in 10 villages near Pune, India, in Shirur County of Maharashtra State, to educate and empower rural adolescent girls and women. And her research here at Brookings evaluates the impact of Ashtanokai's interventions over the last 15 years to improve the educational outcomes of adolescent girls and to prevent early child marriages. So we will allow her to do a brief presentation, and then I'll come back up and moderate the panel on this particular topic of going beyond the girl in life skills approaches to empowerment. Joining us for that panel will be Yuki Sakurai, Chief of Adolescent Development and Participation in UNICEF Nepal. Through Yuki's work there, she's aimed to really provide opportunities to empower adolescent boys and girls and to fulfill their rights by providing social and financial skills training and creating an enabling environment for adolescents. She's also contributed to setting the skills development in adolescent girls' participation agenda, and has worked with different stakeholders to support holistic adolescent girls' development in Nepal. We'll also have Aisatu Jallo, who is the program manager of Girls Initiatives at BRAC USA, where she leads their global adolescent girls portfolio and manages resilience-based projects targeting women entrepreneurs in Liberia and Sierra Leone. ISA also promotes BRAC's financial inclusion and adolescent development work in the sub-Saharan Africa. And then last but not least, Abigail Bukavalis, who is the Senior Director of Educational Programs for International Social Impact at Sesame Workshop. There, Abby leads the department's education team, which is responsible for designing curricula and programs around planning and executing teacher and facilitator trainings, as well as collaborating on and monitoring evaluation activities. She leads multi-country initiatives focused on shifting parental perceptions of play and building parental capacity to engage in meaningful play in India, Mexico, and South Africa. So we'll get started with Armin's presentation.